Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about the ethnic cleansing of Palestine by Ilan Pappe. With the latest attempt of a ceasefire where as usual Palestinian combat forces ceased and the IOF and their terrorist gang kept firing, it is important to remember while the genocide has been ongoing for more than 2 years, the oppression, the apartheid, the ethnic cleansing that Palestinians had to suffer under Israel Jewish supremacy with the backing of Western imperialism forces, including Western allies and also their pan-Arab allies, there is a lot of history that is important to remember that the current thing that is happening is both the result of past events and also just a repeat of them. That's why I want to highlight Ilan Pape's book that covers the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. Let's go back a little bit in time. When white European Jewish settlers came to Palestine with the support of British Empire in late 1800s, the Zionists have been trying to take the Palestinian land there. But for the most part, the Jews and the Arabs still live in harmony, even making businesses in collaboration after the two Semitic groups blend together. But the Zionist group at that time, which mostly consists of only the government and some violent terrorist gang members that they supported like the Haganah, has always wanted more. In one of these streets stood the red building that was built as a textile factory in the 20s and was later taken and repurposed by the Haganah in the 40s as their headquarters like they're some sort of evil organization. In 1948, a meeting consisted of 11 Zionist leaders, some from the Haganah gang and some from the government, had a meeting there to further flesh out a plan they called Plan D or Plan Dalet. The plan was the continuous Zionist plan to take over Palestinian land, starting with the Plan Aleph from 1945, and this is one of their most urgent one in response to UN Resolution 181, also known as the UN Palestinian Partition Plan, where they separate Palestine and Israel as two states. Yes, this is the same two-state solution that is still being pushed as a resolution to the current genocide. It has existed since back then, it even goes back to 1982 with the Fast Summit, but the two-state solution, just like the usual ceasefire where the Palestinians cease and Israel fire, is just a scam. In the Dalet plan, the Zionist leader made it clear for the first time that the Palestinian needs to go. If need be, they will use military campaign to do it, which we know now that they did. The plan's first concept was built and first run in February 1947 and was finished in March 1948, and 6 months after that, 11 urban cities were emptied of their residents, 531 villages were destroyed, and more than 800,000 Palestinian people were uprooted from those places and more. We know this as the Nakba. Most people will only remember the explosion as peaceful, but it was not. It was violent, like military invasion level of violence. There were many massacres, Palestinians were being bombed, but still despite the overwhelming evidence for it, because it is a reality that happened, the Israel made claims that it is not expulsion, that the Palestinians fled their home voluntarily because there are other Arab countries that are trying to attack them, so the Palestinians voluntarily went away for their safety. Which is a very obvious lie once you think about it, because for one, only the Palestinian was being told to flee while every Jewish civilian stayed at home. And then lastly, the Palestinians who voluntarily fled after Israel told them to were not allowed to go back into their land and into their house. This is why the symbol of the Nakba is a key, because every Palestinian that was violently forced out of their own home carried the key to their house with them. This is why they have always been fighting for a right to return to their land, to their home. And this is not some kind of freak accident or anything. This all has been planned in the Dalet plan that started way before the date of the Nakba. And to understand how deeply rooted Israel is with Zionism, one of the 11 members that was in that final meeting was David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, and later on the Haganah terrorist gang that was in that meeting with him became the IDF, or the more correct term, IOF. Israel Occupation Forces. These Haganah terrorist gang or the IOF member that executed the Nakba have made quotes like "we had to destroy them, otherwise we would have Arabs here," in reference to the 531 Palestinian villages that were destroyed during the Nakba. Another person who is there at the meeting that supervised the execution of Plan Dalet was Isser Harel, the person who will later on become the first head of Mossad and Shabak. Yes, that Mossad and Shabak, the secret service of Israel, who will later on work alongside the lobbying group IPAC to influence US policy to be much more pro-Israel. Before IPAC influence, at least the United States with UN has made the UN Resolution 194 that explicitly stated that the expulsed Palestinians should be allowed to go back to their home, which Israel just fully ignored, and then both the United States and the UN ignored that Israel ignored them. A big part of this was because Zionism is an ideology that is based on ethnic supremacy, a belief that their race are superior and thus whatever they do should be allowed. It's just white supremacy 2.0, which is why it fits so well with Western imperialism. It is so white supremacy that they erase non-European Jews' identity like the Arab Jews. It is so Jewish supremacy that in 2018, they removed Arabic from their official language and tag it as a special language, like it's not meant to be used by human species or anything. It is so white supremacy that they loaded what they deem as a sign of weakness like empathy or even victims, which is why a lot of Holocaust survivors live in poverty while American immigrants there can live for free. Meanwhile, they are still using the Holocaust to try to traumatize every generation of Jews across the world that was born so far from it. Even though the Holocaust survivors recognized the same racism they were subjected to when they were kidnapped and tortured by the Nazi, when they see Israel and has gone on record to refuse to let Zionists use their story as Hasbara. But not just history, even religion was just a tool that Zionist movement used as both a weapon and a shield. Zionism used Judaism in the same way that the Nazi used Christianity. It has never been about religion as a moral guidance. That's why they just put the Star of David symbol everywhere, even on their torture chamber. The father of Zionism, Theodor Herzl himself, is an atheist that don't believe in Judaism. Judaism belief of the Holy Land was that they will return then after the second coming of the Messiah. That is why the Orthodox Jews are almost always either not a Zionist or even anti-Zionist, and that is why the IOF are so violent against them. This exceptionalism also shows every time they were given Palestinian land, like the Petah Tikva in 1878 or the much later Balfour Declaration, where the British backstabbed the Palestinians who helped them take down the Ottoman Empire in exchange for their freedom by giving more power and protection to the Zionist movement in Palestine instead. But still, the Zionists are still not grateful enough with what they had despite needing so little of the land for their small population at that time. So they started attacking the British armies that were there to control the land together with the Jews. Attack that was mostly ignored considering the Brits and the Jews has been attacking many Arabs brutally in their own land, but one of these attacks finally got enough publicity. The King Hotel David bombing that killed 91 people. This was done by the Haganah and another offshoot group that came from Haganah, the Irgun, another terrorist militia gang. The leader of the group that also led the bombing was a Zionist named Menachem Begin, who later became Israel Prime Minister. His other accomplishment, besides bombing the hotel and leading the terrorist country, was forming the Likud political group that was mostly filled with ex-Irgun members. It is also the party where Benjamin Netanyahu came from. But back in the past, after that bombing, instead of giving Palestine back to the Palestinians, the Brits decided to just leave, like the cucks they are. Israel hallucinated that without the British armies, they don't have enough manpower to defend the land that they've stolen, let alone take over more, so they justified making Plan Dalet in order to kill or get rid of as many Palestinians as possible with everything that they have. As you can see, the Nakba has always been Jewish supremacist terrorist project. They started escalating threats and violence to raid bait the Palestinians to attack them so they have their 7 October excuse. The only reason the Nakba doesn't have much more Palestinian dead was because they were so peaceful that the Israel who at that point have armed even their civilians in order to gun down the Palestinians did not have the chance to use them since the Palestinians just goes on with their life despite the Jews' hostility toward them months before the date of the Nakba. But the Israel armies, along with all the other terrorist militia groups like Haganah and Irgun, kept escalating the violence, including bombing the Palestinians even when there were Jews nearby as collateral damage because white supremacy don't do empathy. They shot, burn, rape. They use rape as a weapon, so much that it is part of modern Israel culture as I mentioned in another video. As you can tell from history, Israel and terrorist militia gang has always have close relation. Besides Haganah and Irgun, there was also the Lehi and many others, and now that all of them is in charge of Israel and has managed to raise most of the country to be as racist and as hateful as them, they still continue to cooperate with terrorist militia gang, even with ISIS that is a group designated by the West as terrorists. But of course for the West that did not matter. British started all of this, and then ever since 1967 when America decided to send weapons to Israel after they sunk one of their own battleship, just because the Christian Zionists believe that it will help to fast forward the second coming of Jesus among many others like land and oil. Life has only gotten worse and worse for the Palestinians. Every peace treaty and ceasefire they have to willingly take was just another checkpoint for Israel to go on to the next steps of their plan. It is because they still don't have enough. Just like Plan Dalet that successfully did the Nakba, Israel Plan now has moved to the Greater Israel Plan, which is why they have been attacking so many countries while starving Palestinians to death. I hope those who signed the Abraham Accords started to sweat a little bit at least. But anyway, some of you might have realized the current ongoing genocide is just the Nakba that has not stopped, but the only reason Israel can get away with it so far is because Western Imperial and their allies like America, British, Saudi Arabia, etc. has been helping them to Nakba denial for so long. But those kind of propaganda has always been weak to the truth, and once the truth came out, the shift toward change is unstoppable. So right now, if you want to know more to fight their misinformation, I recommend this book because it goes into almost day-to-day basis on every atrocities that happens before, during, and after the Nakba. It is long and it can be boring, but it is one of the most important Palestinian story that needs to be known. I give this a 4.25. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.